לידה היא ראשית, ופטירה תכלית. החיים כמסע הם, כהליכה, כצמיחה, משלב לשלב. Birth is a beginning, death a destination. Life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage. מילדות לבגרות, מנוער לשיבה. We go from childhood to maturity, from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, from ignorance to knowledge, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. מחולשה לעוצמה או עוצמה לחולשה ולעתים בחזרה. We go from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. מעבירה למחילה, מבדידות לדידות. We go from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith. לידה היא ראשית ופטירה תכלית. החיים כמסע הם, עלייה קדושה, שלב אחר שלב. Birth is a beginning, life a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. We've come together to say goodbye to Peggy Lynn Shapiro, who died very young. I have congregants who are 104, 102, 99. It's more normal now to live much longer than what people used to. Peggy clearly died before her time. And she died at a very interesting time. Jewish calendar right now, we're preparing for Passover. 2.5 weeks from now, millions of Jewish people will sit down at their tables for Seder. And we're going to remember our struggles, the struggles of our people for Exodus, liberation from slavery after 400 years of suffering. And at the end, we celebrate as we remember the incredible event of splitting of the sea and the people are getting out into the freedom. Peggy had her own struggle. And against a tough cancer. Lung cancer is considered one of the most dangerous ones. And she was a fighter. It took her some time to really become aware what was going on. She thought it was, I just was told that she thought for a while that this was just back pains. And then unfortunately the cancer spread into the bones. And then Reva told me that Sloan Kettering discovered some kind of a new medication, and she was very close to really getting it, and then, unfortunately, COVID attacked her again, and pneumonia is what actually finished and killed her. So Peggy was not able to celebrate her liberations, her exodus. I did not have the privilege of knowing her, but I've spoken to quite a few people, and I feel cheated that I never got to know her. This is what I was told, and I suspect some of you knew her much better. She was extremely creative, unique creativity. I went on website and I discovered amazing posters and those campaigns, political campaigns for important politicians. She did fundraisers, and I was also told that her creativity was not only for clients. She actually created special cards and gifts for friends and family members. So that creativity really, she was a very talented person. She was also extremely brilliant, from what I understand, high IQ. She was clever, she was perceptive, and from what I understand, games were important to her, intellectual games. And perhaps you'll hear from others. From what I understand, there is not one person who ever beat her in any of the games. Not in Scramble, not in Buggle. And she played, even during COVID, I understand that Jacob, Alan's friend, played with her weekly games. And he's a brilliant young man, but even he apparently could never beat her. She was very smart. And she was quick-witted, very funny, and laughed a lot. Ellen, one of her closest friends from college, said to me, "Who will I laugh with now?" They laughed a lot. They did a lot of things together. She had always had a big smile. She was an incredible friend. And this is what I heard from several people, from Ellen and Marlene, Ellen's mother, Donna. They did a lot of things. Everybody said that Peggy was always there for people. She was there. She was always listening, had perceptive insights, was always helpful, great listener, which today is a rare gift. Most people talk, and they don't really know how to listen to others. She was actually godmother to all of Ellen's 3 children. She called them her angels. So there are many other things that I was told. For example, that she was a troublemaker when they were in college. Ellen and Donna also told me that they were doing crazy stuff together and traveling around the country in a small car. And they have a lot of incredible memories. This is also unusual. Donna, when she was getting married, asked Peggy to sign her ketubah, the marriage document. This is the most important, kind of like a sentimental, emotional document. She was the one who signed. And Donna also told me that she got her into cats. And Riva told me that she named cats after the Kennedys and other politicians. So cats were important to her. Yes, she was a political junkie, that's what I understand. She was passionate about politics, and that was her major passion in life. I understand that she liked to sing also. Yeah, well, she was a singer. At least the girls told me that they used to sing together, and they had a theme song called Together. They did the skydiving and rollerblades and all of that stuff. It is a sad moment, of course. Her life was cut too short. There was so much else that she wanted to do in life. But we want to remember that smile. We want to remember that laughter. We want to remember the fact that she loved music and theater and games and cats and adventures. And that creativity. The world is not the same without Peggy. In the words of a man who suffered more than anybody else in the Bible, in the words of Job, Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach. Ishem Adonai Mevorach. God has given her to us. God is taking her away from us. May God's name be blessed forever. Amen. I would like to invite Cindy to be the first speaker to talk about her sister.
These last several months have been the most difficult I have been through. And I want to thank all the family and friends for their love and support, especially her friends. Peggy's friends were wonderful. They're caring and loving and could not do enough for her. And she was blessed to have them. Peggy was my first playmate, my first best friend. I was very protective of her and did everything for her to a fault. My mother blames me for the fact that Peggy never learned to cook. We used to play make-believe a lot. I was always a teacher, she was always the student, I was always the doctor, she was always the patient. I was a taxi cab driver, she was the passenger until she jumped out of the car and I ran over her foot. We were very close, we never argued, which according to my mother was rare among sisters. To this day, I don't think we ever had harsh words her whole life. We shared a bedroom when we were young, and when my mother finally split us up, we used to sit all night against the wall and talk to each other. And I remember my mother used to take art lessons at the Detroit Institute of Arts, and Peggy and I would run around the institute. And there's a poster in her bedroom now, which was one of her favorite paintings in the museum. She never liked to shop. She used to cry when my mother would take her shopping for shoes. And we grew up in a family that did love to play games. We were weaned on Perquacky before she got into Scrabble and Boggle and everything else. And she loved planning family get-togethers and celebrations. She would do the invitations. She would have special T-shirts made. She would do a lot of the planning. She was very creative and very family-oriented, and she kept in touch with everybody. She was always a kid at heart. My mother loved musicals, so we grew up on musicals, and we used to spend a lot of time in her record collection, especially the Judy Garland version of A Star is Born, and we would memorize the songs and perform them for our folks, and as well as Alan Sherman and Harry Belafonte. She always was trying to strengthen her thick, curly hair, and I was always perming mine. And she loved to go for walks. She loved animals, or she loved going through the park in Chicago, along Lake Michigan, and through the zoo to see the animals. And while I was in Chicago, I had the chance to really get to know her cats, Huntley and Brinkley, who are loving animals, and we are trying to find them a beautiful home. If you knew Peggy, you were one of the lucky ones like me to have her in your life. She was a blessing to know and to have as a sister. She was the best gift I ever received. And a little of her is always going to be in me. Peggy was always there for me, through good times and through bad. Someone to laugh and cry with, the best friend I ever had. I was blessed she was in my life. She was very special, you see. God placed a love for my sister deep in the heart of me. I love you, Peggy.
I'd like to invite Peggy's niece, Emma, to come up and say a few words about her aunt.
As long as we will live, they too will live. For they are now a part of us as we remember them. As difficult as this may be, I would like to practice as this quote suggests, to channel my sorrow and pain into pride for my cherished memories. To go forth in life, not dwelling on time lost, but holding near to times we could share. I know that is how she would want me to see it. She wouldn't want any of us to grieve, but rather honor all that she is. She will continue to be all of those things to each of us. She will continue to be a daughter, a sister, a cousin, and a friend, as long as we hold on to those memories near. And those relationships will never fade, for that love is eternal. I'm lucky enough to have had a special relationship with my Aunt Peggy, one I would consider like a friendship. She was there through my childhood years. She never missed a birthday or a milestone. She sent me my age and Tootsie Pop suckers every birthday. She was my first playtime partner, and she smothered me with love. It was how our relationship changed as I got older that I am most grateful for. Throughout my adolescent and young adult life, she saw me for the person I was becoming. She treated me as an equal. She gave me a judgment-free, safe space and showed me that she was a confidant, and I wasn't just a child in her eyes. I'm lucky to have many special memories to remind me of this bond. My Aunt Peggy was beautiful, intelligent, extremely loving, and had the best sense of humor. I will hold fondly to memories of visits we had and phone calls we shared. We had a similar taste in television and other pop culture topics. Many interesting conversations we shared helped me find my way to navigate through my growing years. I'm thankful for her always being that light for me and comforted in knowing in my heart she'll always be nearby. Thank you.
Emma just mentioned non-judgmental, and I've heard from several people that she did not judge. You could tell her anything, and she was just accepting and loving and supportive. And that's a very special quality, very unusual quality. Most of us tend to judge other people more than we judge ourselves. I'd like to invite Linda, the cousin, to say a few words.
I'm Linda, Peggy's first cousin. What a fun time we used to have after so many family dinners, playing games. Peggy was the smartest. She always knew the answers. She was so quick, rapid fire with her answers and her jokes. And I can still hear her giggle. We used to laugh a lot more than we almost talked. And she was so accepting. She was such a brilliant mind. I wrote about the games that we played. She would be online with cousins from Hawaii and Florida, playing her word games. I was always in awe of her brilliance. She was so much smarter than I. I felt I could barely keep up with her. She never bragged about anything that she did, but she was one of the most accomplished of us all. I feel that I'd like to do just a little bit because this week I learned all the many people that she did work for. And I'd like to brag just a little bit on their political campaigns, fundraisers. Each one was so special and unique of the campaigns and fundraisers. She did the Humphrey Mondale campaign. She worked for President Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Senator Al Franken, Senator Barbara Boxer, Senator Dick Durbin, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senator Cory Booker, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Harry Reid, Vice President Al Gore, Governor Pat Quinn, Senator Amy Klobuchar, the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia. She hosted fundraisers at homes and held them from Hollywood to New York. She was the liaison to the Mayor Richard Daley of Chicago in the Department of Special Events as chief graphic artist and designer, designing the clever banners on the streets of Chicago for all their special events. Just want to end with something. When I walked into my Aunt Reva's this week, my Aunt Reva always had the most clever gifts and cards that Peggy made and thought up. And I walked in and I saw this Mother's Day card. Reva's in a mask, and the top line says, "Are you trying to tell us what to do?" which was Reva's passion. Sorry, we can't hear you through the mask. And that was her wry. In just a few sentences, she could capture somebody and know that that would press Auntie Reva's button. Sorry, we can't hear you. And it was only one of the many, many gifts that she made. Her humor and wit will be missed by so many. I'm hoping I just gave you a little bit more insight into what her life was like. Bravo, Peg. You really were one of a kind. Thank you.
Our tradition says that it is normal for children to bury their parents, but it is not normal for parents to bury their children. There is nothing more difficult than for a parent to speak about her child who is gone. Riva, you will try? You want to come up and try? And it's okay if you get emotional.
My dearest Peggy, I was so looking forward for your arrival in Florida after you showed off to me that you can now sit up and get into a wheelchair. I thought that was a turning point and started making private plane arrangements to fly you down here. What a shock when you were taken into the ICU. You and I were excited that Dr. Dunn from Sloan Kettering advised that you didn't need to go there because their protocol had proven successful and buy you some good time. So you were treated with that formula. But you had COVID for 6 weeks, and then pneumonia was just too much, let alone the cancer, for your body to endure. I can't get over your brave heart dealing with that horrific pain. Thank God you are now in heaven and suffering no longer. I want you to know how proud I was of your talent and achievements. You were always the smartest in your class with an IQ of 140. But you were a handful when you wouldn't go to school for high achievers that your teachers advised, nor would you accept the invitation to attend Cranbrook School. You said that was for rich, spoiled kids. And you lived in Palmer Woods and drove a convertible, but I guess that was okay. I'll miss our evening chats for an hour or so. Your clever wit always made me laugh. You were a political junkie. You even called one of your cats Kennedy. Politics was your passion, so I could always count on you for that kind of advice. I appreciate that you were always worried about my health. You even gave me advice about the men in my life, and I forgive you for that. I regret about this time of the pandemic that kept us apart, but at least we FaceTime many times a day. I'll miss my sweet, beautiful, talented girl who I was so proud of, who is going to do my party invitations and help me with clever themes. My heart will be broken forever. I'm not saying goodbye for now, my darling angel, because I'll be with you soon to give you lots of smooches and hugs. Love, Mom.
When Hollywood wants to show a funeral, they usually show you a priest, a minister, a rabbi standing by the graveside and reciting the powerful and very famous words of Psalm 23, which is considered perhaps the most beloved piece of liturgy in the world. It's been with our people for thousands of years. It's on the wall. Many people, especially Christian people, know it by heart. It's very comforting, very healing. There are more books and interpretations written on this small poem than almost on anything else. The most powerful line is saying that you're never alone. And this is important for you, Riva. It says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you're not alone. God is with you. So in fact, let's do this together. We will chant Psalm 23 for the family especially. Together, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ach tov v'chesed irdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. If any of you will have some stories about Peggy, you will have an opportunity later on. Everybody's invited to lunch, so you will be able to speak at that time. But we will now conclude this first part of the service with the traditional memorial prayer, El Maleh Rachamim. Please rise if you can. El Maleh Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Amtze Menucha Nechona תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כי זורקים מזהירים את נשמת פגי לין, שהלכה לעולמה, בעל רחמים, יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. וצרור, בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום, ותנוח בשלום, על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. Compassionate God, Eternal Spirit of the universe, we ask you to grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Peggy Lynn, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. Peggy is with God. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Whenever we raise a glass of something, we say to life, life, life. Unlike most religions around the world, Judaism is obsessed with life, this life. And yet, this is also part of life. So this part of the service is much shorter. We try not to dwell too long at a cemetery, at a graveside. And yet there are important rituals that take place right here, and I explained this to the family. In the rising of the sun, and when the sun goes down, we will remember Peggy. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember Peggy. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember Peggy. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember Peggy. When we're weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we're lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she's now part of all of us, as we will continue to remember her. The Jewish people were exiled 2,000 years ago from our homeland in Israel, and we were dispersed all over the planet, and yet in every corner of the world, and yet we never forgot Jerusalem. Until today, Jews all over the world, when we are ready to pray, we always say, where is East? Where is Jerusalem? At the very end of the Seder, millions of Jews will say, next year in Jerusalem. And for some of us, God willing, this year in Jerusalem. At the very end of Yom Kippur, the last words we say, next year in Jerusalem. So for 2,000 years, we were not even able to go home to our homeland. And yet, a very important ritual was developed. And we're going to to do this mitzvah now. This is earth from the holiest cemetery in the world, from the Mount of Olives. I'm assuming most of you were there, overlooking the Golden Dome. It's a huge cemetery. For thousands of years, many important leaders were buried there. Even poor Jews in the middle of nowhere, in the shtetl, they would save money all their lives and say to their children, when I am gone, please, I want to be buried on Mount of Olives. So it's traditional now to connect our loved one to this holy place in Jerusalem. So I will ask the immediate family to begin. If you can stand up, Riva, this is an important element also. To put some earth on the top of the casket in the star, in the middle of the Star of David, if you can. Did you travel to Israel? Mm-hmm. Yes. Did you like Israel? Mm-hmm. So I think this is very symbolic. Peggy liked Israel, she traveled there. Yeah. So put it on the top of the stars if you can. And Linda, go ahead. Cindy.
Watch your step, folks.
Emma. Just be careful, okay? Yes. Come close over there. Okay. One at a time, yeah, go ahead. Okay. What can we know of death? We who cannot even understand life. We study the seed and the cell, but the power deep within them will always elude us. Though we cannot understand, we accept life as the gift of God. Yet death, life's twin, we face with fear. But why be afraid? Death is a haven to the weary, a relief for the sorely afflicted. We are safe in death as we are in life. There is no pain in death. There is only the pain of the living, as they recall shared loves, as they themselves fear to die. Dear God, calm us when we cry out in our fear and in our grief. Turn us anew toward life, Awaken us to the warmth of human love that speaks to us of you. We shall fear no evil as we will continue to affirm your goodness. We have been around for thousands of years. We know how to celebrate, how to dance, how to drink, how to laugh. But our tradition is also knowledgeable and profound about death. Today there are experts in grieving. There are psychiatrists, psychologists, PhDs in grieving and mourning. And they tell us that the Jewish way of dealing with death and grieving is sophisticated and very profound psychologically. Everybody is familiar with the 5 stages of grief. The most dangerous one is the first one. We all know about denial. When something so shocking happens, like Riva said to me, I was in shock, I couldn't even think. When something shocking happens, we say, I cannot believe this, right? We all are in denial. And things will be strange to those of you who were close to her. You will hear her voice, you will hear her laughter, you will see the images of that smile. So denial is a very dangerous stage. Some people get stuck in denial and they don't go through the rest of the stages. So the tradition, our tradition, thousands of years ago, came up with this ritual, and it's probably well known to many of you. We ask the closest people to the deceased to actually take the shovel and to throw some earth on the casket. And some people say, but is it not cruel? It's hard for loved ones to hear that sound. And yet that's the point. The point is to actually take it with your own hands if you can, if you're capable, if you're able to do it. And do this with your own hands to make sure that you don't get stuck in denial. So we do it in a strange way. You can probably see that the shovels are turned backwards. This is not the way to use the shovels. You see that? I don't know if you can see from there. What we're doing is, what we're saying is, this is not what we want to use these shovels for. We would rather build hospitals and kindergartens and schools, not gravesites. And yet, we have to do this. So we do it in a strange way. The very first shovel, you do it the way it is right now, backwards. Then you can turn it normally and throw a few more if you want. We want to cover as much as we can. So also it's traditional to put it back the way it was, not to pass it from hands to hands. I will help you for those of you who are confused a little bit. So I will ask the closest people to begin. Again, Riva, if you're careful, you can walk around.
Just watch your step.
Watch your step. We don't want anybody to slip or to fall down. No?
Oh, that way? This way.
Correct. That's it. That's right.
Watch your step on the other side.
And now you can turn it normally. Now you can do normally, a few more if you want. Riva, hold on to this. Yeah, you can do it together.
Can they come around
Thank you.
this way?
Oh, yeah, you know, that's a little bit dangerous. Go around this way and come to the other side.
Come this way.
And you see, this is important. We're also using all the precautions according to CDC.
Full of sand. I got clear.
That's right. And then the second one you can turn normally.
So I can use this like
No, you can do it like this, the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, that's right. Now more normal. That's right. Okay. Now you can turn it normally and throw a few more if you want. Yeah, you can go around to the other side if you want. Al mikoma tavo lishalom. Lech kishalach Adonai, go your way, for God has called you. Lech v'Adonai yemach, go your way, and may God be with you. V'alach lifanecha tzedkecha, kvod Adonai yasfecha, may your righteousness and good deeds go before you, and may the glory of God receive you. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. Reva, this is important. The spirit of your child does not disappear. She is around. She will be always with you. It is only the house of the spirit which we now lay within the earth. The spirit itself never dies. Dear God, we ask you to receive in mercy the soul of our departed Peggy. Grant her that everlasting peace which you prepared for all of us in the world to come. Judaism does believe that something continues. This is not the end. I know some people say we don't believe in the world to come. It's not true. The soul continues. Though no human eye has ever seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it, still, it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. Dear God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to you, as we will continue to repeat the words, hallowed, sanctified by many generations. It is traditional to cover as much as we can. The Mourner's Kaddish is probably the most famous prayer in Judaism. Many people know the Mourner's Kaddish by heart. And yet a lot of people don't know that this prayer doesn't mention death, doesn't mention mourning. It's actually a very upbeat prayer. It says, even though we may be hurt, we may be in pain, or perhaps especially when we're in pain, we're going to stand up for what was important to a loved one. We're going to stand up for the principles, ideals that were close to her heart. And we're going to continue to believe in God. We may not understand why God does when He takes away our loved one. And yet, we need to continue to believe that God is good. God knows better. It's also another interesting thing about Mourner's Kaddish. It's not in Hebrew. It's in another language, Jewish language, that our people used for 1,000 years, way before there was Yiddish. Our people spoke Aramaic. Jesus spoke Aramaic and preached in Aramaic. So this is the official beginning of the mourning process. I mentioned to you, Riva, that you wear the ribbon for 7 days, but the mourning continues for 1 month, 30 days, beginning right now. And the main element of mourning is saying the Mourner's Kaddish. It's interesting that the Jewish people do not allow the mourners to be alone. So that's why you're all invited to go to the lunch afterwards. But this continues for at least a week, to help the mourners to feel that they're not abandoned, they're not alone. And that's why we say Mourner's Kaddish only when there are 10 Jewish people in a minyan. That's the idea of minyan, to force the rest of us, the friends and neighbors and relatives, to show up and to help the mourners to say that powerful prayer. So I will ask the family to rise יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל. שמי דקודשא בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה. דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא. וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. On behalf of the family, I want to express their gratitude to all of you for being here. It's important. You helped the family to begin this process. The last thing we do at the cemetery is traditionally we wash our hands. Again, Judaism is passionate about life. So we separate life from death. We wash our hands before we leave. But before we do that, I'll ask everybody except for the immediate family to form a corridor, 2 lines. And we say the traditional formula which has been said by our people for thousands of years under these circumstances. Hamakom inachem etchem b'toch shar avilei Zion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you together with all the honor mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And we also do not say goodbye to each other at a cemetery. We say of simchas, let's not meet here anymore. Let's meet for celebrations, for lechaims, for happy events, bar mitzvahs, weddings, baby namings, and so on. Of simchas. Thank you all for coming.